Dr. Ronny Jackson, former White House physician, now Republican 13th District congressional candidate, won that primary here just in recent days on the Republican side. And come November, likely just a formality that he becomes our next congressman. Dr. Jackson, welcome back, sir.
Hey, thank you, Chris. I appreciate you having me.
Nice to talk to you, Doctor. Thank you, as always, for squeezing us into your very busy schedule. So we're hearing some of these stories now about the vaccine progress or vaccines, maybe multiples, being in advanced stages of the testing. I think the latest number that I saw was the third phase. What does all that mean in this vaccine creation process?
Well, it means that they're much further along than you would normally expect. You know, one of the things that the coronavirus pointed out to the president, and to a lot of us actually, some of us on the medical side knew it, but it's opened the eyes to a lot of folks, including the president, that we've got a lot of regulations and a lot of standard operating procedures in the FDA and the CDC and with, CMS, Medicare, Medicaid, and everything that really slow down the process for everything we do in medicine. Well, the president, he had a job to do. He had to get a vaccine out there because of what was going on. So he's done like he's approached it like he's approached everything else in his administration. He said, I don't care what's out there that's blocking us from doing this. We're going to get around it. We're going to do it now. And so what he's done is he's gone out there and he's really expedited the process. Normally you go through the development process and then the manufacturing process and then the distribution process. The president has authorized and provided the funds, in fact, for some of these vaccines that are real promising. I think there's 5 of them in the hopper right now that are really promising, and he's allowed those processes to happen simultaneously. So there's vaccines out there that haven't completely gone through the development process, but he's already authorized for some of the manufacture and distribution stuff to be set up for those, so that the day that we get final approval on those, they're already out there for a lot of folks.
What kind of I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, so I think, he's taken a unique approach to it where he's really untied the hands of these private companies and taking some of the financial risk out of making these vaccines because he needs them to happen and he needs it to happen quickly. And so he's provided the leadership to make that happen. But we're close. I mean, I think there's a couple of them out there now, like you said, that are in the final phases of some of the early human testing even right now where they're testing them on humans, kind of the third phase. And, I think that there's a real possibility that we might have an announcement that we're going to have a vaccine early fall. Maybe October, November, we're going to have a vaccine out there. That's kind of what I'm hearing through the grapevine.
Mm-hmm. It's a part of this story that's important to note, isn't it? His work and his ability to work and his understanding and being able to work with the private sector. Unlike so many politicians, unlike Joe Biden, unlike Barack Hussein Obama, who all became multimillionaires after they were in political office, Donald Trump made his billions before ever being elected president of the United States, before ever getting into politics. He is a businessman. He is a private sector man, and he's been able to work with these private sector pharmaceutical companies to help bring this along so quickly, hasn't he?
Well, he has. He's been able to work with them, and the other thing, Chris, is he's not controlled by them. He said something the other day that caught my ear a couple of days ago when he was talking about some of the stuff he's rolling out on the healthcare side. And you will never ever hear another politician say what he said. He got on there, and he's working with pharma to make this happen. But he pushed out some other stuff that wasn't very appealing to big pharma, and big pharma. They have so much money in play right now on both the right and the left, the Democrats and the Republicans. They control so much of what happens in our government, and that's how they've been able to get away with a lot of stuff they've done over the years with making so much money, on the process. But, what he said the other day, he got up and he said he was getting phone calls from the left. He was getting phone calls from the right. He was getting phone calls from everybody complaining about what was going on with Big Pharma, just saying, sir, please don't do this. And you know what he said? He goes, I just told him, Big Pharma doesn't mean anything to me. I'm going to do what's right for the American people. And nobody has the guts to stand up to Big Pharma like he does. So he's not only able to work with Big Pharma and push Big Pharma in certain directions, but he's not manipulated, by the pressure that they put on other politicians when it comes to their bottom line. He's just said, you are going to do this. You're going to do it voluntarily, or we're going to make you do it.
Mm-hmm. Of course, those on the left continue to push the narrative that President Trump has done nothing in the fight against COVID. How insane is that, Dr. Jackson?
Oh, that's the most ridiculous thing. He's taken such an aggressive posture on this. I mean, if it were up to the Democrats, if it were up to Nancy Pelosi and her crew, there's no telling where we'd be right now. Because when the president was shutting China down and shutting travel from China and travel from Europe and all these other hot spots when it first came out, when he was shutting all this stuff down and securing our country, she was out running around saying that he was overreacting. You remember he talks about on occasion she was actually down in Chinatown telling people to come out.
Yeah.
I mean, so if we'd have taken their approach, there's no telling where we'd be right now.
Yeah. While, just in case you didn't catch that, folks, that was happening at the same time. While the president was being called a racist, again, of course, for shutting off travel early on within days of the first American case of COVID-19 from China, called a racist for that. While that was happening, Nancy was in Chinatown out in California saying, it's over. Come on down. Let's party. I mean, that's true.
Yeah.
That was happening.
Yeah.
What is your take on the hydroxychloroquine controversy? Is it beneficial? Is it not? Does that, like many drugs, vary by patient? That's the reality. Should it be given more attention than it is? I mean, we've seen some doctors, again, come out in recent days that say they're using it and it's helping their patients, and many just do everything they can to discredit those people that have that opinion. What's going on there?
Well, I think the reason there's a controversy is because, one of the bigger supporters of hydroxychloroquine right off the bat was Donald J. Trump. And as soon as he got behind it, everybody else on the left that basically doesn't really care what the issue are. If he's for it, they're against it. That's just the way they operate. They try to undermine everything that comes out of his mouth, whether it's good for all of us or not. They try to undermine it. I'll tell you what I do know about hydroxychloroquine. I know that in prophylactic doses and small treatment doses for outpatients, it's harmless. We've given probably over 1 billion doses of this since the 1940s because we used it for prophylaxis to prevent malaria. And it's been given out so much. It is a harmless drug given in the doses that we're giving it for prophylaxis and for treatment as an outpatient. And, it probably has some real benefit to it. But they're just trying their best to shut it down for no other reason than they don't want it to be successful, because they know if it becomes really successful, who's going to get the credit for it? Donald Trump's going to get the credit for it, and they cannot live with that.
You talked about working with, and at times battling the big money in big pharma all at the same time in the president's efforts. Hydroxychloroquine, as you say, has been around so long. I hear it's just pennies per dose.
It is.
It's not a big profit maker anymore. It's far beyond that. Is that one reason that some people are against it? Hold it. We don't want one of those low-cost deals. We want to release this new one that people are going to have to pay an arm and a leg for. Is that happening?
Yeah, I mean, that's always a big part of it. If there's no money to be made in it, if it's a generic drug that's been around forever, there's going to be no incentive whatsoever. If we found out that the cure for coronavirus was aspirin, there would probably be a big push to prevent that from happening just because it's so cheap, right? But, the other drugs out there, which some of them are probably good too, like remdesivir, remdesivir costs a fair amount of money. It has to be given IV, it has to be given in the hospital. It's expensive. But, nobody's pushing back on that, So, cost has a lot to do with it. Big pharma, a lot of what drives big pharma, obviously, is the money they make. And they spread that money around Congress pretty aggressively, and they buy a lot of influence. But they found out this week they can't buy Donald J. Trump.
Dr. Ronny Jackson, we always appreciate you, sir. Stay safe, and we'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Chris. Thank you.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank you, sir.